speak on the supplementary additional appropriation bills 24, 25. These bills, Appropriation Bill No.5, 23, 24 and Appropriation Bill No.6, 23, 24, provide additional expenditure in 23, 24. These bills provide funding for the general purposes of government for the fiscal year 23, 24. Appropriation Bill No.5 provides a further $2.1 billion for the ordinary services of government, including $1.17 billion for the social services portfolio. Appropriation Bill No.6 provides just under $500 million for certain expenditures relating to non-operating costs, including payments to the states and local government. The majority of this, $452 million, is to the Department of Defence. This expenditure allows for a reclassification from operating to capital. The opposition will be supporting the passage of these bills as we have the passage of the initial Appropriation Bill 23-24 and the additional Appropriation Bill in 2024. Deputy Speaker, the Treasurer spoke just previously on Appropriation Bill as well and said that Australians are poorer under the Albanese Labor government. Australians are paying the price for Labor's wrong priorities and bad decisions. And he spoke about Labor's homegrown inflation, that the cost of living is up, that energy prices are up, that mortgages, rents, groceries are all up under the Albanese Labor government. This budget fails the key test to tackle inflation at its source. But instead of addressing the causes of Labor's homegrown inflation, Labor's spending is up by some $315 billion, which the member for Hume has spoken about. He also said that the average Australian household has been left $35,000 worse off. And I'm seeing that in my own electorate of Petrie, where people were promised that mortgages at the Labor campaign speech in 2022 would be cheaper under the Prime Minister. The front page of the Courier Mail and other papers at the time, 2 years ago, was "You will be better off under me," with the Prime Minister on the front page. But what's happened since then? This is what people need to know. Their mortgages have gone through the roof. The average person in my electorate up to $35,000 worse off. Some might be $25,000 worse off. Some might be more. But you've got to ask yourself, under the Albanese Labor government, with the support of the Greens party in the Senate, how is this working out for Australians and the people of Petrie? And I would say, Deputy Speaker, that it's working out poorly, that Australians were much better off under the coalition government. And at the next election, next year, under the leadership of Peter Dutton, the Leader of the Opposition, we'll make sure that we have policies that make Australians better off, not worse off like we're seeing under this current Albanese Labor government. We are all poorer for the Albanese Labor government. It's just going from one thing to the next. The budget also fails the economic tests which the Shadow Treasurer set for the Treasurer. In this uncertain economic times, we needed a budget that got back to basics. That means a budget that restored our standard of living. This budget doesn't do that. Doesn't matter your age, whether you're retired or whether you're a young person just finishing uni, standard of living has dropped under the Albanese Labor government with the support of the Greens party in the Senate. We needed a budget that restored prosperity and created opportunity for small businesses, for family businesses, to make sure that their costs weren't higher, that's passed on every day when people go and shop or buy the services that we need. We needed a budget that restored prosperity and created opportunity for young Australians and to help them into a home. We haven't seen that with this government, whereas the coalition has policies outlined by the Leader of the Opposition in the budget and reply that is aimed at young people, to be able to use their money within superannuation, a percentage of that, because we know that getting people into a house is the #1 thing that helps people. We know that because we've seen rents go through the roof as well. I did a poll in my own electorate just the other day in Petrie. asking people, has their rents gone up? And yes, most people's rents have gone up in the last 2 years by at least $100. Now, that's a lot. That's a lot of money. If you're on the minimum wage, or you're on government services, or even if you're on a good wage raising a couple of kids. If you've got $100 a week extra, that's another $5,200 out of their own pocket. Not to mention the increase is around groceries, around energy, gas, electricity prices, which they were promised would be lower under the Albanese Labor government. We know that's gone nowhere. And the $300 announced by the Treasurer in the budget doesn't even touch the surface. That won't even cover the increases that the people of Petrie have seen in the last 2 years since they were elected. I mean, they were outdone by the Miles Labor government, by the way. The Miles Labor government offered all Queenslanders $1,000. So when everyone tuned into the Treasurer's budget here a week or so later and saw a measly $300, they thought, what's that going to do? So Queenslanders will get $1,300 due to the Miles Labor government and the Albanese Labor government. But guess what? It's still for 12 months. After that, you're all still paying higher again. The Miles Labor government want to get re-elected for a fourth term or a fifth term, whatever it is, in October this year. So they give you a little sweetener for 12 months. And then what happens in year 2, year 3, year 4? Nothing. Everyone's paying higher energy costs again. That's right. And the same with the Albanese government with their lousy $300. And they give $325 to small businesses in Petrie, right? Now, we heard in question time last week, or the week before, that a gym in Western Sydney had their energy bill go from $12,000 to $27,000. But don't worry, they're getting $325 from this PM. All right, your bill's gone up 15 grand, but hey, we'll give you $325. We're like, thanks very much. What's that going to do to gym membership? To everyone in Western Sydney, in the members for Lindsay's seat, that wants to join the gym, or in my seat, a Petrie that wants to join the gym, if their energy bill has gone up by $15,000 under the Labor government in 2 years, what will that do to your gym membership? I can tell you what it's going to do. Your gym membership's going to go up. That's what's going to happen. And then you're going to have less people going to the gym, higher health issues from people not exercising.
Get rid of Jim. He's the problem.
Get rid of Jim. Get rid of the Treasurer. Well, thanks to the member for Hume, we will continue to put Australians first. That's what we'll do, because right now, under this budget, we're not seeing that. Labor's third budget test has failed all 3 tests that the shadow Treasurer outlined for them. All 3 tests failed. But since coming to government, don't worry, they've delivered another 36,000 bureaucrats in Canberra. I mean, to put that into perspective, our entire Australian Defence Force full-time, under this government too, has fallen below 60,000. We've got some 58,500 full-time Army, Air Force and Navy personnel. But in 2 years, this government has added another 36,000 public servants in Canberra. What are you going to do? They're not going to join the ADF, but they've allowed 36,000 additional full-time public servants in Canberra in 2 years, but have allowed the ADF to fall below 60,000, to put that into perspective. And for people in my electorate, once again, you look at the Queensland public servants, the last 10 years that Labor have been in up there, they've grown the public service by 60,000. That's just in Queensland. So they've grown the public service by more than the entire ADF that are here to defend our freedom and to make sure that there's a deterrent here in Australia. The government has failed on defence in this budget as well, absolutely failed. The Deputy Prime Minister talks about all this extra expenditure, but it's all in years 7, 8, 9 and 10, some third term if they get that. Now, what about right now today in the first term? What are they doing there now? We're not seeing the expenditure, and we're actually seeing defence personnel fall as well. Labor's decisions as well are also making inflation worse. Under Labor, as the Shadow Treasurer has been drumming down and for people listening and for people in Petrie, another $315 billion of spending over the forward estimate. So think of the last coalition budget. The total figure there, they've added $315 billion, but the Treasurer says, oh, this isn't adding to inflation. Don't worry, your mortgages are going up, your rents are going up, your cost of living's gone up because inflation's higher than most of the rest of the world, including all the European Union. But they're adding another $315 billion in spending. How can that not add to inflation? How can that not add to rents being higher for longer and mortgages being higher for longer? And when people have a shower and cook their food at night with gas, they're paying more for that in the middle of winter, right? That's all gone up under the Albanese government. When they go to the checkout down at Aldi, or down at IGA or the Super Barn or Woolworths at Coles, their groceries have gone up, right? These Labor governments try to shift all that onto the local businesses, all whilst they're increasing regulation, industrial relations, increasing costs on energy, and they wonder why people are paying more, because this government, the Albanese government, keeps putting more and more costs onto businesses, more and more red tape onto businesses, and the people in my electorate and the people right around Australia and the member for Hume's electorate, member for Perth's electorate, they're all paying more. That's the reality. Extra spending doesn't take pressure off inflation, and in fact it makes it worse. The RBA governor has said that inflation is now homegrown, and independent economists, which the Shadow Treasurer has outlined in a number of speeches, have all said that this budget, the Treasurer's budget, is a flop and it adds to inflation. Labor has trashed the standard of living in this country right now. They promised a lot 2 years ago, and they'll promise you a lot in May next year, but you cannot believe a word of what they say, because we've proven, this Prime Minister has proven to break election promises. I mean, he said on stage 3 tax cuts, he comes in here today and talks on the Appropriation Bill, Deputy Speaker, and says, oh, everyone's getting more under our tax cuts, right? Well, he promised he wouldn't change tax cuts at all. My word is my bond, he said. That's what he said. That's what he said. He promised everyone, you can vote for me, I'm not changing it. And guess what? He has completely changed it and reintroduced bracket creep, and a whole new tax rate, 37%, has been put back in to what was legislated under the coalition. So, I think in my own electorate there's about 10,000 people that will be impacted by that are going to be hit with an additional 7%, as well as all the cost of living. The government goes on about wages going up. That's great. It's gone up a little bit. That's good. But the problem is the inflation and the cost of living is way outstripping what their wages have gone up. And so it means that families are 7.5% worse off than when Labor came to office. And over the last 2 years, the Albanese Labor government, family budgets have been absolutely smashed. And the Leader of the Opposition, Peter Dutton's aware of that. The Shadow Treasurer, Angus Taylor's aware of that. So higher mortgage repayments and higher taxes under this government are bad for Australians. And that's why the Liberals and Nationals will take policies to the election next year that will help Australians. Taxes as well that the Prime Minister once again promised not to change, on unrealised capital gains in superannuation and on franking credits. He's also broken his word on that. And after 3 Labor budgets, the average person in Petrie is worse off. There is nothing in this budget that restores what has been lost. Families are doing it tough. Small and businesses are doing it tough. And the inflation data, the latest inflation data, shows that under the Albanese Labor government, prices across the board have risen by close to 10%. Food is up 10%, housing is up 12%, gas is up 25%, electricity is up 18%. Remember this in May 2025. That's what I'd say to the people of Petrie and the people right around the country. Deputy Speaker, they've also funded in this budget some future made in Australia, but there's still a lot of questions that need to be answered about this. And also from the minister opposite, where's the 100,000 jobs that have been lost since he came to office in manufacturing? Yeah. Because under this coalition government, under the shadow treasurer, there was 1 million jobs in manufacturing during COVID. Now this guy gets up and says, oh, there's 900,000 jobs in Australia. 100,000 jobs just vanished in the last 2 years in manufacturing, yet now their propaganda is future made in Australia. And we know that in this budget there's money for unions, there's money for a treasurer's spin unit, and there's money for some sort of future made in Australia when they've already lost 10% of manufacturing jobs. With insolvencies at levels not seen in a decade under the Albanese government, people are doing it tough. What we can agree on, of course, the shadow treasurer has outlined $3.4 billion in life-saving medicines to the PBS, $1 billion towards accommodation for women and children fleeing DV. Don't forget the Morrison government delivered a lot in that space, 6,000 places. 20,000 for the instant asset write-off that should be extended to 30,000 and made permanent. Exactly. Now let's just have a quick look in Petrie. Nothing for Petrie. Nothing. Right? First of all, they got rid of the Stronger Communities grants. That was really, really important for all those local not-for-profit organisations in our electorates right around Australia. Well, the Albanese Labor government, they axed a lot. All gone, Stronger Communities. So $2,500 to $20,000 for local people, might be local sporting equipment, could be solar to help reduce their energy bills on their roof. This program ran for years under the coalition government. Now, if you want that back, the only way you're going to get that back is to vote Liberal and National in 2025. And under the leadership of Peter Dutton, that's what we need. There's nothing in this government for Stronger Communities. This provided some $150,000 for groups in Petrie every year, and it's absolutely been axed, I'm sad to say. The other thing is that I've spoken with the Prime Minister, last year's budget as well, about other funding required in Petrie, and it hasn't once again been funded. So the NRL Dolphins need a high-performance centre that will also benefit grassroots sporting organisations in Petrie, including Redcliffe High students. We wanted $15 million for a high-performance centre. That has been not funded, left out again. And what will that cost to build later on? With inflation, it's going to go up even further. The Tigers AFC, Tigers Aussie Rules Club, there was a 50-50 agreement with the Moreton Bay Council to fund female change rooms. The Prime Minister has not funded that for the people of Petrie either. The Aspley Bowls Club, that needed a cover over their second green down there in Aspley, at the time 2 years ago it was $600,000. To build that now is going to cost $1.3 million. There's no money for that from the Albanese Labor government. The Redcliffe League softball as well needed $500,000 to upgrade a new clubhouse, which would have been done through to help with regional competitions, and with the Brisbane Olympics coming in 2032. To build that now costs $1.3 million, and the Albanese Labor government has also left out that. Peninsula Power Football, one of the best little football clubs in Australia, right in my electorate. They're not in the A-League, but they're right behind it. In fact, they're probably the 17th best club, I think it was at last count, football club in Australia. Nothing there for LED lighting. And once again, the Albanese Labor government has been wanting when it comes to these clubs in Petrie. And the Aspley Hornets, I was out there on the weekend watching their AFL, their football club play well. They absolutely smashed the competition. But we wanted new female change rooms there. And on this weekend, the Aspley Hornets women's team is playing. I encourage you to get down there and watch them this weekend. But the coalition, the Liberal National Party, committed at the last election $780,000 to help build new female sports clubs, and there's nothing in this budget from the Albanese Labor government, nothing from the Prime Minister or his sports minister, by the way. He's in the neighbouring seat, the member for Lilly. What's she doing to advocate for the local area?
Yeah.
Absolutely diddly squat. That's what she's doing. The Aspley Hornets are missing out because this Albanese Labor government is not focusing on Queensland. I don't know what Morton's getting over there, but I tell you, Petrie did very well under the coalition government, and under the Albanese Labor government, nothing, absolutely nothing. And I'll tell you what, I bet you the member for Morton, Deputy Chair, did all right under the coalition too. Yeah. I don't know how he's going, but Queensland is missing out under the Albanese Labor government. And let me talk about Linkfield Road, please. Linkfield Road. Linkfield Road, 6 years ago, back when Malcolm Turnbull was Prime Minister, we funded 80% to get that built. Now, we got a local member up there who's now been made the Transport Minister, a bloke called Bart Mellish, the member for Aspley. The bloke's done nothing in 6 years. Nothing. Linkfield Road has been hit over and over and over again by trucks that are heading along Gympie Road to get onto the Bruce Highway. This should have been built. This should have been built. And the Palaszczuk Miles government have just not done it. There's a whole lot of other infrastructure programs as well, not just Linkfield Road, but other bridges like the Gateway upgrade between Bracken Ridge and the Pine River. That hasn't been done. The Beans Road overpass also hasn't been done. There's no new money for that, and the Miles Labor government was supposed to start that in 2021 when Anastasia Palaszczuk was still the Premier, and nothing under the Miles government. Still hasn't started 3 years later, after they stuck it up on a billboard saying it would start in 2021 and 2024. It still hasn't been done. This is an absolute debacle from Labor governments in Queensland and all around the country.
The debate is interrupted in the